There is a dark consequence of the COVID pandemic, an increase in trafficking of children.
What do we mean when we talk about a child being trafficked?
It's trading or selling a child to perform sexual acts for monetary gain or services.
The numbers are staggering. This week, from Epstein to Hollywood, a stark look at sex trafficking.
There are new and ominous signs of a Russian buildup on a European border.
Vladimir Putin's main aim is that the rest of the world should treat Russia as if it were the Soviet Union.
We look at a clear and present danger from our coverage on the front lines in Ukraine.
The coronavirus pandemic highlighted the need to secure life-saving medical equipment. But when those vital machines break, there's a fight over fixing them.
Hospitals and hospital techs have been calling for this information for ages. It took a crisis for them to get access to this information.
What you may not know about a fight called the right to repair.
Welcome to Full Measure. I'm Sharyl Attkisson. With kids spending more time at home and on the internet during the COVID-19 shutdown, something unexpected happened. Authorities say sex trafficking that begins online doubled. And with that, there's been an uptick in reports of children sold for sex by their own parents and relatives. Today, we take a frank look at a dark American scandal stretching from the poorest neighborhoods to the rich and famous.
One for the party, two for the shawty, three for the shake your bum bum bum.
September 2020, international controversy over a Netflix film called Cuties.
I guarantee you every pedophile in America is going to watch this movie, and that Netflix is sitting back fat and happy making money on it. That's not right.
Critics questioned whether Cuties drew awareness to the problem of sexual exploitation of children or sexually exploited the 11-year-old actors. The controversy amplified the discussion about abuse and trafficking of children in the U.S. Just last month in San Joaquin County, California, a child trafficking sex predator sting netted 57 arrests. Chief Inspector Floriano Whitwell heads up sex offender investigations for the U.S. Marshals Service.
What do we mean when we talk about a child being trafficked?
It's trading or selling a child to perform sexual acts for monetary gain or services.
The numbers are staggering. In 2019 and 2020, more than 786,000 children were reported missing in the U.S., most considered endangered runaways. The marshals, seen here on a rescue operation in Atlanta, say a lot of those kids end up trafficked, not always by large organized rings, but by people they know and trust.
Do parents sometimes traffic or sell their own children?
That absolutely exists.
How young are some of the cases you've seen?
I think the youngest children we've recovered were as young as 7 years old.
Rescue some kids.
He says the real story is that it's happening to so many American kids, but isn't getting more attention.
I personally was extremely concerned by the lack of spotlight, the lack of resources, and just simply the lack of children being recovered across our country, knowing now how big of an epidemic it was. And so I decided to make that my focus.
Which is one reason why you may have heard about a series of rescues by the U.S. Marshals Service. In Georgia, Operation Not Forgotten recovered 26 children. 27 were found in Virginia in Operation Find Our Children. Beyond Georgia and Virginia, 5 kids were rescued in Oklahoma's Operation Triple Beam with 262 arrests. 15 kids, more than 30 arrests in Operations Boo Dat and Summer Rescue, New Orleans. Iowa, Operation Homecoming. Ohio and Indianapolis, Operation Safety Net. Ohio, Operation Autumn Hope. Philadelphia, Operation Safeguard. And in Tennessee, 150 children were found through Operation Volunteer Strong, and that doesn't count all the rescues by other law enforcement.
Last year, we recovered 387 missing children, and that was the most we've ever recovered, almost 100 more than the previous year. But I would also emphasize that, in my opinion, we're barely scratching the surface.
Which takes us back to the cuties controversy. Some consider child exploitation and trafficking to be Hollywood's elephant in the room, long the subject of rumors and rambling accusations.
If I'm lying, sue me, because these are like pretty damning allegations that I'm making. These are pretty damning allegations. So if I'm lying, sue me.
That's actor Isaac Cappy.
I need a horse.
He's seen here in the superhero film Thor.
We don't have horses, just dogs, cats.
In 2018, Cappy posted a series of explosive allegations online.
So a lot of showbiz parents will knowingly give their kids to be abused because they'll be like, oh well, we'll get your kid rules and money, and then they take the money and then they just sell their kids. People sell their kids. They sell their kids for money. And it's very, very up.
9 months after that video, police say Cappy committed suicide by forcing himself off a bridge in Arizona onto an interstate.
Okay, so moving on to what?
Beyond the conspiracies, there's hard evidence of horrifying sexual exploitation of children by those in the entertainment industry. In Great Britain, the monstrous case of Jimmy Savile, one of the BBC's biggest stars. After he died in 2011, criminal investigations found he'd allegedly victimized up to 1,000 children as young as age 2. One recently spoke of being trafficked by her own mother at age 8 to be drugged and raped by Savile. Independent film producer John Paul Rice says child abuse in Hollywood is also very real. He's seen here, Blue Tie, in one of his own films. Rice says he got a rude awakening as a young man getting his start.
And there was a legitimate film that I had been asked to audition for by a director. And when I told my manager that, his immediate response is, oh, he wants to F you. Like, no hesitation whatsoever.
Thought you were getting an audition because
of sex. It was expected, and it was, you know, that this is the world.
Former child actor Corey Feldman recently spoke out, saying he was preyed on by men in the industry. And he said his friend, Corey Haim, was raped on a movie set at age 11. Haim died in 2010 after years of drug addiction. After movie producer Harvey Weinstein was sentenced to prison for sexual assault and rape last year, Rice says he thought more actors might step up to expose child abuse, but they didn't.
There was a rude awakening, of course, during the Weinstein scandal. Things that had been an open secret but not really addressed for decades came out in the open. But it kind of stopped when it came to talking about children. The scandal was about what happened to women in Hollywood.
Right.
Why do you think it is that people can't or won't address that more directly?
Fear. They're afraid of losing work. Their entire livelihood is tied into making a product for an industry that does this to children, so you kind of have to separate the two.
It may be no surprise that Weinstein connects to Jeffrey Epstein, the child predator tied to the rich and famous. Epstein was invited to major red carpet events even after his 2008 conviction. In 2019, he was arrested again for sex trafficking children before reportedly committing suicide in prison.
And once the human trafficking and the Epstein and the Maxwell and the Weinstein came out, more and more questions were raised, more and more questions were asked, and then the silence of Hollywood is what told them that it was really, really bad.
In the end, the recent case against Epstein links back to the U.S. Marshals.
A tip to the Marshals Service turned into the FBI case. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Several years before Epstein was arrested by the FBI, our investigators from the Sex Offender Investigations Branch received information that Epstein was with great frequency seen at Tarmac in Florida with young girls. Our investigators began this investigation and also worked with the FBI, provided what was uncovered in our investigation to the FBI, and that's the FBI initiated their criminal investigation and obviously followed through, which culminated in his arrest.
Do you have the merchandise here?
Yep. Came in this morning.
Rice has decided to express his concerns through film. He produced A Child's Voice, depicting a child trafficking ring.
Top quality.
As for Cuties, the backlash turned out to be temporary. The director defended her movie and won an award at the Sundance Film Festival.
We must all together to figure out what is the best for our children. As a director, as an artist, I'm doing my part with this film.
The people who made the film Cuties say that the whole purpose of that film is to draw attention to the exploitation of children, not to do anything harmful.
Mm-hmm. Calling this art, you sexualize children, you market it as a product, a film, you're going to normalize pedophilia. And that's essentially what this all means, is that it's going to become more normal that we see this.
Authorities say children being trafficked across our southern border with Mexico is a growing worry. Ahead on Full Measure, will the U.S. get drawn in as concern grows over a potential for Russia's invasion of Ukraine? The U.S. has sent a message of support for Ukraine as Russia continues what much of the world sees as provocative action toward its former Soviet partner. The U.S. and other nations are wondering if they should step in. Scott Thuman, who's reported from those front lines before, has the update.
These satellite images, first published last month, served as an ominous warning, escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Russian fighter jets and other military equipment positioned near Ukraine's border where just a month earlier there was nothing. Tens of thousands of extra troops also reported in the region as Russia flexed its military muscle conducting war games. It is, some worry, a precursor of things to come, or at the very least, an attempt to put the Western world on alert.
Vladimir Putin's main aim is that the rest of the world should treat Russia as if it were the Soviet Union.
Angela Stent has handled Russian affairs at both the State Department and the National Intelligence Council. She's now a professor at Georgetown University and author of the book Putin's World.
His worldview is increasingly, and that is similar to the Soviet times, that the West is out to undermine him, that the West is the adversary, and that he has to make sure that the West doesn't weaken and, as he sometimes likes to say, bite off a chunk of Russia.
Ever since Russia invaded and annexed the Crimean Peninsula, essentially taking over that portion of Ukraine in 2014, their reach has grown significantly. Separatists and Russian-backed forces now control large swaths of the eastern Donbas region, rich with coal and metal resources. Some 14,000 people have been killed, mostly Ukrainians, as Russia potentially eyes taking even more territory. 3 winters ago, we went to the front lines to see for ourselves the battle being waged. On the Ukrainian side, the trenches and much of the firepower, more World War II than 2021. Weaving our way through a freshly bombed-out neighborhood in eastern Ukraine, we are told to move quickly and stay low.
And they have mounted there 4 fire position, 4 machine gun fire position. It's there. So they observe enemy position.
Enemy positions on that slag pile right there.
And after a few minutes, we push forward into the trenches and seemingly backwards in time.
You can see that there are some soldiers positioned here behind me in this particular trench. They've got little foxholes along the way, gunner positions that we've passed as well. We're going to keep moving up as close to the front line as we can.
Even as we interview this father and son duo defending this part of the line, more gunfire breaks out.
So we just heard a series of shots fired, not 100 yards away perhaps. We got down a little bit, but they say they're not terribly worried because they've become so used to it. It happens all the time.
We have a small arm fire almost every day here. But from time to time, they also used BMP, BTR. They used their high caliber weapon.
This is life in the forgotten war.
I do not believe that Russia wants to take over Ukraine. I do believe that it probably wants to keep this frozen conflict festering in southeastern Ukraine, which will make it very difficult for whatever government is in Kiev to rule the country and would make it impossible to join NATO or the European Union.
President Biden and leaders of Europe's NATO military alliance have called on Russia to stand down and pull back.
I affirmed U.S. support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, and I strongly urged him to refrain from any military action. Now is the time to de-escalate.
Moscow claimed it scaled back, but the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, argued not enough and sent this message to Vladimir Putin.
We'll continue to strengthen our security partnership in close collaboration with you to make sure that Ukraine can defend itself against aggression. We're aware that Russia has withdrawn some forces from the border of Ukraine, but we also see that significant forces remain there, significant equipment remains there. We're monitoring the situation very, very closely.
Experts say Russia's actions demonstrate it can ignite an even larger conflict at will. These new developments a reminder that Russia isn't relenting and, in fact, seems intent on intensifying this long-lasting siege. I'm Scott Thuman for Full Measure.
Coming up on Full Measure, the right to repair vital medical equipment. The coronavirus pandemic highlighted the need to secure life-saving medical equipment. But when those vital machines break, there's a fight over fixing them that you might not know about. Repair technicians say they can't do their job because manufacturers withhold information to keep the repairs and profit to themselves. Critics say that costs time and lives. Lisa Fletcher reports on the fight over the right to repair.
First, we have an update on the spread of the deadly coronavirus.
The importance of functioning medical machines no clearer than during a global pandemic.
We're now the king of ventilators. Nobody that needed a ventilator in this country didn't get one.
Amid the COVID-19 crisis, President Trump touted victory in securing enough ventilators. Beneath the surface, there was a real-time rush to ensure those machines were at the ready. But there's a key obstacle to keeping medical equipment of all types up and running. The matter of who can fix them when they break.
Okay, so this is an anesthesia machine. You have oxygen, nitrous oxide, and medical air coming through the system.
Chris Endress owns Atlantic Biomedical, which services and repairs about 24,000 devices a year for surgery centers, nursing homes, and hospitals.
We repair all medical devices, whether it's from a monitor to a suction pump to defibrillators, anesthesia machines. We hook up the wires from an EKG machine here.
He says their vital work often gets blocked by device makers who try to keep the money from the repair business for themselves.
They don't want to work with us because we're a third-party company. They don't want to give us tech support over the phone. They don't want to sell us parts, and they don't want to give us any technical literature.
Endress says that happens with about 40% of their workload.
This is something you guys would fix?
This is, yep.
And what's their solution?
They want us to have the doctor call them direct and have them do the repair themselves.
So give me a sense of the price difference between you and the manufacturer fixing that anesthesia machine. What's their hourly rate?
Upwards of $475 an hour.
And you?
We're about $147 an hour.
Same training?
Same training.
The FDA weighed in 2018. saying it's, quote, critical to the functioning of the U.S. healthcare system that third parties conduct service and repair. For their part, some device manufacturers say repairs done by others could be unsafe. AdvaMed, the Advanced Medical Technology Association, is a trade association of about 400 healthcare organizations. Last year, it argued that medical device repair is highly sensitive, and promoting third-party access to repairs could, quote, jeopardize patient safety and quality of care. Emily Scarr is the Maryland director at the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, which is helping get third parties the information they need with an initiative called the Right to Repair.
When manufacturers control how and if their products can be repaired, it tends to drive up the cost to consumers. It takes longer for broken items to be fixed, if they can be fixed at all.
In simple terms, what is the right to repair?
So the right to repair means that customers and independent repair technicians have access to the information they need to maintain equipment. Things like service manuals, diagnostic software, and replacement parts.
Scar's nonprofit group collected more than 40,000 petition signatures at the height of the coronavirus emergency, calling on ventilator manufacturers to release information others need for repairs and maintenance. Many responded, some even creating online portals to ensure hospital technicians could have access. A victory in the right to repair world, but not an end to the fight.
How confident are you that when the pandemic is over, they're still going to be as free with this information?
I'm not confident that they're going to be free with the information, nor am I confident they're as free as they should be right now. While we've seen that hospitals and hospital techs have been calling for this information for ages, it took a crisis for them to get access to this information.
The Right to Repair bill was introduced in Congress last fall. It is stalled in the Senate. And we'll be back with a look at what's ahead next week on Full Measure. Here's what's coming up next week on Full Measure.
Season 7 begins with a stunning investigation into record-setting illegal border crossings and a new tent city local set up to test arrivals for COVID because the feds aren't.
Do you know about how many people are there?
Right now, it has already gone to 1,300 plus.
That's next week.
Until then, we'll be searching for more stories that hold powers accountable. Thanks for watching. I'm Sharyl Attkisson.